Welcome to another episode where we look at history and culture through the lens of beer. Today, we're going to looking at beer ingredients. We all know beer is made from barley, but did you ever think about how much the barley itself can change the flavor?
Yeah, you might be surprised to learn that there's a whole world of flavor hidden within that little grain.
Right. And apparently it's all about this fancy word terroir, which I usually only hear when people are talking about wine.
It's not just for wine anymore. Terroir is basically the idea that the environment where something is grown, so the soil, the climate, even the surrounding plants and animals, all have an impact on how it tastes.
Okay, so you're telling me that where the barley grows can actually change the flavor of the beer. I'm skeptical, I have to admit.
Well, think about it like this. Would a tomato grown in a sunny garden taste the same as one grown in a greenhouse?
Hmm, good point. I guess not.
Exactly, and it's the same with barley. You can actually taste the difference between barley grown in a windswept field by the sea versus barley grown in a sheltered valley.
Wow, that's wild. But is there like actual science behind this, or is it just, marketing hype?
Oh, there's real science backing it up. We actually have an article here from the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. Very light reading, of course.
Huh.
But in all seriousness, there was this fascinating study done by Waterford Distillery in Ireland. They partnered with a researcher named Dr. Dustin Herb to study how different growing environments actually impacted their whiskey. And guess what? They found that the barley's terroir really does carry through to the final product.
Wait, so how did they figure that out? Did they like have people taste the whiskey and describe the flavors, or was it something more technical?
They used a combination of techniques, so sensory analysis, where trained tasters describe the flavors, and chemical analysis, where they actually look at the different compounds present in the whiskey.
That's pretty impressive. So they basically created like a flavor fingerprint for each farm's barley.
Exactly. Each farm had its own unique profile based on its terroir. It's really quite remarkable how much the environment can influence the final flavor.
So you're saying that the next time I sip a beer, I should be thinking about where that barley was grown and maybe even what the weather was like that year.
You got it. And it's not just the location and the weather that play a role. It's also the way the farmer cares for the soil.
Oh, so the farmer's skill actually makes a difference too.
Absolutely. I mean, think of it like a chef sourcing ingredients from a local farmer's market. The chef wants the best, freshest ingredients to create their dishes, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's the same with beer. A brewer who is passionate about flavor will care very deeply about where their barley comes from and how it's been grown.
That's really cool. It makes you wonder how many amazing flavors are out there just waiting to be discovered.
And speaking of discovering flavors, this whole idea of terroir led us to another fascinating topic, which is heritage grains.
All right, let's talk heritage grains. What are those exactly?
Well, you know how everyone's been getting into those heirloom tomatoes lately? They're those older varieties, grown for flavor instead of just looking perfect in the supermarket.
Yeah, I love those. They actually taste like a tomato should.
Exactly. Heritage grains are kind of like the heirloom tomatoes of the barley world. They're these older types of barley that were popular way back before World War II, but then they kind of got pushed aside for these newer varieties that could grow more grain even if the flavor wasn't quite as special.
So we kind of traded flavor for efficiency, huh? I guess that makes sense in a way. Everyone wants more bang for their buck.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it also has to do with how farming changed after the war. There was this big push for standardization, for making everything uniform and predictable.
So all the barley started tasting the same. Kind of boring, honestly.
That's the thing, though. Heritage grains weren't just about unique flavors. They were also incredibly resilient. They could handle different weather conditions, different soils, and they didn't require as many chemical fertilizers or pesticides. We have a video here from Barfuss Let's Talk Beer that dives into how some people are going back to these older ways of farming.
Back to the future of farming. I love it. So who are these people bringing back heritage grains? Are we talking big companies or small craft brewers?
It's definitely more of a grassroots movement. Small brewers and distillers who are passionate about preserving those old flavors and reviving those traditional farming practices. One of the folks they feature in that video is a guy named Morris. He's a farmer who actually started his own brewery to showcase the unique terroir of his farm and the heritage barley he grows.
That's so cool. So he's like a farmer brewer.
Exactly. He talks about how farming practices like using cover crops and crop rotation actually make the soil healthier, and that ends up making the barley taste better.
Wait, cover crops, what are those?
They're basically plants that you grow in between your main crops to to protect and nourish the soil. It's kind of like giving the soil a blanket to keep it warm and cozy.
Ah, I get it. So healthier soil, happier barley, tastier beer. That's a win-win-win situation.
Exactly. But of course there are some challenges that come with using heritage grains. I mean, these older varieties often have lower yields and they might require different brewing techniques. Plus, people are so used to the taste of those mass-produced beers, it might take some time for them to come around to these more unique, complex flavors.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it's all about educating people, right? Showing them that there's a whole world of flavor out there beyond the usual light lagers and pale ales.
Precisely. It's about opening their minds and their palates to something new, something that connects them to the past, to the land, and to the people who are working hard to bring back these forgotten flavors.
So how do we get people on board with this heritage grain revolution? I mean, it sounds like a lot more work and maybe not as profitable, right? Like you're not going to find these beers at every gas station or supermarket.
You're right. It's definitely not the easy road. It takes a lot of passion, dedication, and honestly, a bit of a rebellious spirit. The folks in that video talk about how sometimes they even have to fight against regulations that make it harder to grow and share heritage grains.
Wait, really? What kind of regulations?
Apparently, in Europe, there are some pretty strict rules about trading heritage grain seeds between farmers. They're worried that these older varieties could somehow threaten modern food production, which is kind of ironic considering that heritage grains were the foundation of agriculture for centuries.
Wow. That seems a bit extreme, doesn't it? I mean, it's not like they're going to take over the world or anything.
Yeah, it can be frustrating for sure, but the people who are passionate about these grains, they're not giving up easily. They're finding ways to work within the system to educate people and to create these incredible beers and whiskeys that are changing the way we think about flavor and sustainability.
It's inspiring to see people like that, those who are willing to go against the grain, pun intended, to create something special and meaningful.
I think it's important to remember that we as consumers have a lot of power too. By choosing to support these smaller producers who are using locally sourced heritage grains, we're sending a message that we value flavor, tradition, and sustainability.
It's like voting with your wallet, right? Supporting the kind of world you want to see with every purchase you make. And hey, if it comes with a delicious beer, I'm all for it.
Exactly. And it's not just about the purchase itself, it's about taking the time to appreciate the experience. Think about where the ingredients came from, who grew them, what makes them unique. It turns drinking a beer into something much more mindful, much more connected to the earth and to history.
It's funny. We started this conversation talking about terroir and how the environment impacts flavor, but it seems like it's about so much more than that. It's about rediscovering our connection to the food we eat and the drinks we enjoy.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about celebrating the diversity, the complexity, and the history that's woven into every sip.
Well said. And speaking of sipping, I'm starting to get a little thirsty for a beer, maybe one made with heritage grains and a whole lot of passion.
Me too. It's been a pleasure diving into this topic with you.
Yeah, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I had no idea there was so much to think about when it comes to, making a good beer.
It's amazing, right? It really is. When you start to peel back the layers, you realize that something as simple as a beer can be like a window into history and agriculture and even our own connection to the world around us.
I know I'll never look at a beer the same way again. Next time I'm at the store, I'm definitely going to be checking out some of those craft brews made with heritage grains and unique terroirs. It's like going on a flavor adventure.
I love that analogy. And it's not just about the beer itself. It's about supporting those small independent brewers who are so passionate about quality and sustainability. I mean, they're the one who are really pushing the boundaries and keeping those traditions alive.
You're so right. It's about voting with your wallet and in this case, your taste buds.
Exactly. And while we've covered a lot of ground today, there's always more to learn. We only scratched the surface of this whole world of beer ingredients and brewing techniques.
Yeah, that's what I love about these conversations. They always leave me wanting to learn more and explore further.
Well, that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? There's always a new beer to try, a new story to uncover, and a new flavor to experience. So cheers to that.
Cheers! And don't forget to subscribe for more explorations of history and culture through the fascinating world of beer.